guys, it's Mrs. C here with Cycle 1, Week 18. We are 3/4 of the way done. Can't believe it. We finished up Fine Arts today. Well, not Fine Arts, but Great Artists today. We finished up our section of Science. We're going to be moving on to a new section all about rocks and minerals and all that good stuff. And it was a good day. I will go right into geography. So for geography, you are going to be on the world side of the map this week, and it's going to be down in the more blown up section. I did go up to the main part where it comes, kind of shows it's blown up from, and we drew a G. The Gulf of Mexico kind of makes a G, with the Yucatan Peninsula being the part of the G that makes it a G and not a C. So if you kind of turn a G on its side, the Gulf of Mexico makes a G. That helps us remember it's the Gulf of Mexico. And then we did the Yucatan Peninsula. And the way that I colored it in is I kind of colored in the Maya civilization and then drew kind of like exclamation, not exclamation points, but, you know, just kind of like bursts off of the Yucatan Peninsula. And I told the kids if they can find the Yucatan Peninsula, then they know where the Maya civilization is, because that's where they were located. Then we had the Olmecs. They're the tinier one. They're not really a circle, but they're kind of like a flattened circle. But we talked about, we do this and we kind of draw it around like this, and the Olmecs were in the middle. So they're in the middle of our civilization. And then we had the Aztecs. The Aztecs, I didn't have anything cute and clever for, but it does look like the lake that's in the Aztec civilization looks to me like a little duck walking. So that's just kind of how I always remember where it is, that it's around that lake that's over there. So that's what we did for geography. We went and revisited some places that we had been much earlier in the year, because we've been on the Africa side of the map for a long time now. So we've gotten a lot of practice on those, but we went back through and practiced. We did Mongolia, we did our Yangtze River, we did our Mount Everest, we did the Bay of Bengal, we did Yellow Sea, Japan. We did all of those today. Then we went back and kind of hit some in Africa on a different map, which I think is always good to do with them. We found certain countries, found some different areas, went ahead and went over Mediterranean Sea again, just kind of went back through, reviewed really quickly. And I don't have a method to how I review. It is literally, I look at the map and whatever I can remember right at that moment, that's what we review. And I do sometimes have to ask them, like when we were on in the Africa section, I couldn't remember which one was Zimbabwe and which one was Mozambique. And so they kind of helped me look at those. But I knew that where they were. I just couldn't remember which one was which. So we just go back through and review all those. And then after we're done reviewing for a little bit, we go back to the new week stuff. So we went back over all of our civilizations from this week in Mesoamerica. So that was geography. Then we went right into math. So for math, I'm still doing the geometry song with them. They've got it down. Since my kids are a little bit older, I am trying to just take a minute and help them understand why these math equations work for area. So we did that with the rectangle and a square. So today with the triangle, I kind of showed them that if you have a triangle and this is your height and this is your base, if you take this triangle off, take it and flip it, and then you stick it over here, that it makes a rectangle. And so that's why it's 1/2 of the base times the height that ends up turning into the same thing as the length times the width in a rectangle. So we went over that a few times, sang our song a few times, that got it down. Then we went from that into Latin. So last week with Latin, I gave them a few clues for second declension. This week I left it blank and said, because I gave them the helpful hint last week with the us. And so I just left them, and they remembered. They were sitting there like, okay, no, it's not us, because that's 4, and there would be 4 of us, and so that's not that one. So it's us, and they were trying to remember the tune. And so that device that I gave them last week helped. If you haven't watched last week's video, we were trying to remember how we can differentiate between second declension and fourth declension, because they both start with an us. So us looks like us when you write it. And in second declension, there is 1 us. So there's 2 of us in second declension. So 2, 1 us. In fourth declension, there's us. So it's like us and us, which would be you and you and you and you, and that'd be 4. So that helps us remember fourth declension is us, 2 us's. That's how I remember it. I don't know if that's helpful. Hopefully it is. But it helped them. They were remembering that. So once they get that it's just the one us, then they do have to remember the tune, but they were able to do that, and it does help them remember which one. And I just keep trying to remind them, when you're sitting for Memory Master, I am not going to be able to tell you. I'm not going to be able to give you any hints or give you any clues. I'm just going to say, can you tell me second declension Latin noun endings? And that's all I'm going to be able to tell them. So they've got to figure out how they're going to remember those themselves. So we sang through it a few times. They have them down. They have the tune down once they get going on it. So I'm just trying to help them get going. We went from Latin into science. So we had ocean floor. I didn't have anything super catchy for this. We looked at it and said that it spells camped is what it says, C-A-M-T. But we just said them several times, kind of talked about what they are and what's different about it. The last time through this cycle, when I read abyssal plain, I thought it said abysmal at first. And so I always think of I just think abyssal plain, and I have a very negative connotation in my head because I read it as abysmal the first time. So continental shelf, we kind of talked about how that's formed, because obviously land, it's not just like the end of land and then there's water, that's what continues out from the continents all into the water. And then we have the different plains, and those are just the flat sandy areas down and deep in the ocean. Mid-ocean ridge is what happens when we have magma that comes up through there, like we've talked about, and we've seen what happens when lava hits water. It turns into rock. So we have these rock formations that happen, that's mid-ocean ridge. And then a trench is kind of the opposite, and it's when you have a deep when the plates have pulled apart and you just have a deep segment down in the ocean. So that was science. We just went over all of that. English, we have our helping verb song that we're still learning. And some of them already have it down. Some of them just chant it. But if you haven't heard it, it goes, helping verbs, help another verb assert an action, being, or existence. Helping verbs make lots of sense. Helping verbs are do, does, did, has, have, had, should, would, could, may, must, might, should. Ugh. Every time I switch those up, I ask the kids in class to switch them up today. Okay. Do, does, did, has, have, had, should, would. Do, does, did, has, have, had, may, must, might, should, would, could, shall, will, can. And I'm off on the tune. Anyway. This is why I'm not a professional. So I just want you to know. I get it right in class when it's written up on the board. I write them all up on the board, so that's what helps me.
Because it starts with helping verbs.
I know, thank you. Yeah, I know you know it. You're smarter than me. We know. Anyway, 11-year-old thinks she knows everything. Anyway, let's try this again. Okay. Helping verbs, help another verb assert an action, being, or existence. Helping verbs make lots of sense. Helping verbs are do, does, did, has, have, had, may, must, might, should, would, could, shall, will, can. Helping verbs can lend a hand. See, I can do it. I just choose not to sometimes, to model for the parents that they don't have to be perfect. Anyway, so that was English. Sang through that. Chanted through. The kids have those down pretty well. And it's fun with the verbs this year because in essentials, we're into the part where we've got a lot more helping verbs in there, where we've got a lot of different linking verbs, things like that. So it's been really fun to kind of hear them chant. And like today they were trying to play a game, and their definition of a preposition was giving, and they were like, oh, I know that. What is that? And just seeing all of this stuff that we learn here in Foundations come into play in Essentials, and I know it will come into play even more later. It's just fun to see. So anyway, all right, then we went to, that's everything except for history. So for history, I printed these off because they're short sentences, and it's just not very difficult. They get them very fast. Some of them already know the tunes because they're working on their Memory Master. So we don't have a card for the Mound Builder, so I found these and printed them out. They look like a big timeline card. And we listened to the song a few times, and I let them build or draw their own Mound Builder timeline cards. I did pull up some pictures on my phone to show them what the mounds looked like. Just so they had an idea, and I found some pretty cool pictures of they think that their houses were built up on the mounds, and some of them were burial mounds, or just all different things, because they were like, why are they building mounds? Like, some civilization are building like the pyramids, and then these guys are building mounds, and why does that matter? So I was trying to explain to them they weren't just like little tiny hills of dirt, like they were pretty substantial. So showed them some pictures of that, let them draw about the mound builders while we sang about it and listened to it. So, and then I quizzed them a little bit, as in said, like, when did the mound builders live? And circa 1000. We talked about circa, sounds like circle, and it's like means around, like a circle is around, so it's around 1000 BC to AD 1450. And then where did they live? They were in North America. What were the civilization's names? And then I asked where they thought the Mississippians might live. And we have the Hopewell. I'm here in Indiana, and there are some Hopewell mounds around here in Ohio, so you can actually travel to see some of them, which is pretty cool. So we talked about that while they were coloring. That was the last thing that we did, because I was a terrible tutor and I forgot to do timeline today. Shh, don't tell. But I did do it at the end when we did review. I just was like doing really well on time, and I was doing a little too well on time, and I should have realized that I forgot to do timeline. But again, my kiddos really know timeline really well. So that was my bad, and I apologize to my parents that I didn't review that as much as I should today. But we did cover it again when we did review at the end of the day. So anyway, that's what we did for today. I'm trying to think if I did anything extra special. I've used a lot of Basher books before. If you do not have the Basher Rocks and Minerals books, I would highly suggest investing in it for your own sake, because I love all the Basher science books, but it's going to be really handy in the next 6 weeks. But I have this weather one, and so today when we did our science experiment, we're talking about air pressure and wind and how weather is created, and this has a really great couple pages in here that talk about that. So it's got one all about pressure and how pressure works in the atmosphere. And then it also has a page in here that I read to them about weather fronts and the cold and the warm air pushing on each other and why that creates different weather fronts. So this was just a nice little extra to add in. Again, not something you have to have, but these are usually like $9 if you don't get them on sale or find them on a deal. So there's a handy little book. And then Greco, we didn't do anything super special for that. And a lot of times everybody asks what I did for review. So for review, we played Deal or No Deal. And I will try. So I'm really surprised at how many people never saw this game show, but a lot of people haven't. So how you play Deal or No Deal, in case you want to know. You will have 26 envelopes. And I printed cases on them because in the game show, they have cases, okay? You don't have to, you can just label them 1 through 26. And inside the envelopes, I have a card with a monetary value on it. So there's 26 different monetary values. They start with as little as 1 cent and go all the way up to $1 million. So there's like 1 cent, $1, $5, $10, $25, so there's a lot, and then there's like $1 million, 750,000, 500,000. You can look online and see the exact amounts. So before class, I have one of these cards randomly in each envelope. So I don't usually know at the beginning of the class which one the $1 million is in. When you get ready for review, lay out all your envelopes 1 through 26. Wherever you want to lay them on the floor. You can lay them on the table. I usually just lay them on the table. And then up on your whiteboard, you want to write out the money amounts. So again, you can look those up online. You just want to list all of them. So before you start review, you pick a student, usually it's like whoever's birthday is coming up next is how I've been doing it, or whoever just really wants to. And they pick a case for the class. So like this week, the class picked number 13, I think. So that is their case. So you take that case, and for the purposes of this, we're going to say the case is number 7, and they're going to take the case and they're going to not look in it. You don't get to see what's in it. It's just your case, and it gets stuck. I usually stick it up on the board so they can see. All right, so we've got case number 7 here. This is our case. So then to review, you just go around the table and start asking questions. So start with first person, ask a review question. after they answer the question, they get to pick another case. So let's say, for example, they picked case number 22. They would open up case 22 and we would see, oh, $200 is in there. So we know $200 is not in our case number 7. So we erase $200 off the board. Go to the next student. They answer a question. They pick a case. This time they pick case number 2. They open case number 2 up and, oh, 400,000. That's one of the big numbers. 400,000 is in there. So we know 400,000 is not in this case. So we erase it off the board. And you continue around the room. So for every case they open, they have to answer a question first. You can answer it as a group. You can answer it individually. My class tends to just answer it as a group. But you go around, and the rule is that you don't open a case until you answer a question. So on the show, there is a banker. I don't have our banker in here. I left him outside, but so after the first time around the class, I had 6 kids in class today. Usually I have 7 or 8, so it's usually just everybody answers one question, then the banker calls. So at that point, you have some numbers wiped off the board, and you kind of, maybe some big numbers got marked off, or maybe it's been all small numbers. And like on the show, there's a call that comes in, and I just pretend it's the banker, and the banker offers to buy their case for a certain amount of money because the banker doesn't want them to get the $1 million that may be in here. And there is no rhyme or reason to how I do this. I literally just look up on the board and make an estimate on an amount of like what would be like even odds. If you had 50,000 and 100,000, you would offer 75,000, right? So I try to pick something that's kind of in between all the numbers, maybe on the lower side of the numbers, because especially if we're early on, I don't want them to take the deal because I want to keep playing so we can get more review done. So I usually offer them something that they're like, we're not taking that. We might still have a lot of money in there. So I'm like, okay, we'll keep playing. They say no deal. We go around the table again, answering questions, and then again, depending on what we have left, I pretend to call as the banker, and then I offer them to buy their case back for a certain amount of money. I don't usually know what's in here either. You could look ahead of time if you wanted to know, just to find out where the $1 million one is, but it's fun to not know. And you keep going around. As you get towards the end and you have less and less cases left, there's a heightened amount of intensity with every case that gets opened. And also you make them more offers. So again, today I had 6 kids. So we did one round of all 6, another round of all 6, and then the next round, after 3 players, I made them an offer. And then another 3 players, I made them an offer. And then after each couple of players, I made an offer. So I forget how many rounds we got in there with everybody, but you start making more offers because the stakes get higher and higher. And most of the time, by the time they get to the end, they just really want to keep their own case. But let me tell you what happens when you get to the end. Let me put this in here. Let's say you get to the end and you have case 14, and this is our original case 7. Okay, so you've got 2 cases left. So you make them one last deal. They can trade this case for their case. They have one chance to do that. They can decide if they want to trade. And if they want to stay with their case, which a lot of times they do, then that's fine. And if they want to trade, then they trade. Then you answer one more question and then you get to open your case. So I don't know what it stuck in here. So this one was $50,000. So you may, and then this case that I had over here was 400. So they actually did really well. They love it. They think it's really fun. It's super easy setup every time. You literally I have these, they're just random from today in a thing. I will mix these up, randomly stick them in, and that's all the prep work there is. You can play it infinite number of times. And you get through 26 questions at least. Since we review geography, hello Graham, and we review timeline all together, and when we do prepositions, we do all the prepositions together. When we do helping verbs, we do all the helping verbs together. So we haven't, a lot of those don't take up individual ones. We sing them all together. Latin, you're doing multiple weeks of that. So anyway, it works out pretty well. So that's how we play that game. Sorry that made this video so much longer, but I will be back next week. If you're prepping for orchestra, I do have an orchestra video. I do talk about a few specific Cycle 3 songs, really only one, but most of it applies for orchestra no matter what cycle it is. So if you need some help with that or some inspiration, you can check out that video. And I will see you guys back next week with week 19. Bye.